Star Trek, Section 31's only Starfleet officer doesn't know they're doomed. In Star Trek, Section 31, Lieutenant Rachel Garrett Casey Roll is eager to move up Starfleet's ranks, unaware that her tragic future is already set. A Star Trek movie unlike any other, Section 31 follows Emperor Philippa Georgiou Michelle as she teams up with a Section 31 team to stop a devastating weapon from her past. Since its premiere on January 24, 2025, on Paramount+, Section 31 has received mostly negative reviews, but Casey Roll's take on Rachel Garrett was one of the bright spots. Despite its lackluster reviews, Star Trek, Section 31 introduces some compelling new characters to the Star Trek franchise, but one character should be familiar to Star Trek, the Next Generation fans. Captain Rachel Garrett Tricia O'Neill made her Star Trek debut in TNG Season 3, Episode 15, Yesterday's Enterprise, as the doomed captain of the USS Enterprise C. Little has been revealed about the character since her appearance in TNG, but Section 31 offers a look into her life as a young Starfleet lieutenant. Star Trek, Section 31's LT. Rachel Garrett doesn't know she's doomed, despite being stuck with a Section 31 team LT. Rachel Garrett maintains her positive view of Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets. Garrett may be a top-tier science officer now, but she has dreams of becoming a captain one day. Not only will Garrett achieve her goal of becoming captain, but she will also get to command the Jewel of Starfleet and Star Trek's most famous ship. Garrett's time in command of the USS Enterprise C will be cut tragically short, however, when she sacrifices her ship to save a Klingon outpost from certain destruction. Star Trek, The Next Generation's Yesterday's Enterprise takes place in 2366, 20 years after Captain Garrett's command, but sees the USS Enterprise D encounter the Enterprise C of the past. When Garrett's Enterprise emerges from a temporal rift from the year 2344, it drastically alters the future, plunging the Federation into a war with the Klingons. Captain Garrett must make the ultimate sacrifice to restore the proper future, but LT. Garrett of Star Trek, Section 31 has no idea about her eventual fate. Still, Section 31 offers glimpses of the Captain Garrett will become. Even as a lieutenant, she is willing to risk her own life to save others. By 2344, 20 years after the events of Star Trek, Section 31, Rachel Garrett will be in command of the USS Enterprise C. When Captain Garrett answers a distress call from the Klingon outpost at Narendra 3, the Enterprise C arrives to engage 4 Romulan warbirds. At some point during the fight, the weapon's fire opens a temporal rift, which the heavily damaged Enterprise inadvertently drifts through. Upon arriving in 2366, Captain Garrett eventually learns that her actions at the Klingon outpost that day prevented a devastating decades-long conflict with the Klingon Empire. Although it means almost certain death, Rachel agrees to return through the fissure to restore the proper future. Tragically, Captain Garrett is killed before the Enterprise C even enters the rift, when 3 Klingon birds of prey attack both Enterprise ships. In the end, LT Richard Costello Christopher McDonald takes the Enterprise C back through the rift, saving the future Federation from a catastrophic war. Captain Garrett's legacy continues to inspire future Starfleet officers. Decades later, Captain Garrett's legacy continues to inspire future Starfleet officers. As revealed in Star Trek, Picard Season 3, Starfleet constructed a statue of Captain Garrett at the Starfleet recruitment building on Metalis Prime. Unfortunately, this statue was destroyed in a terrorist attack on the recruitment building, but Starfleet will hopefully rebuild it. Star Trek, Section 31 helped fill in some of the gaps in Rachel Garrett's story, but it remains to be seen if viewers will see any more of her Starfleet adventures. For most officers in Starfleet, the universe was a vast expanse of hope, exploration, and diplomacy. But for Commander Elise Tanaka, it had turned into something far murkier, where ideals were bartered like contraband and survival depended on not asking the wrong questions. Assigned to the clandestine division known only as Section 31, she believed, with a Starfleet officer's earnestness, that she was making the universe safer. What she didn't realize was that she had already crossed a line she could never return from. Her fate was sealed the moment she said yes. In her first briefing, the man who introduced himself only as Agent Cole laid it out clearly enough. Section 31 operated in the shadows to ensure the Federation's survival. They anticipated threats before they fully materialized. They took actions that Starfleet's bright, shining principles couldn't accommodate. Cole spoke of duty and sacrifice, of the hard choices necessary to preserve utopia. Tanaka, fueled by the same sense of responsibility that made her rise through Starfleet's ranks, agreed to help. She didn't know she had just signed her own death warrant. At first, the mission seemed straightforward: surveillance operations, discreet interventions on hostile worlds, monitoring diplomatic negotiations that might be compromised by unseen hands. She reassured herself that what she was doing still aligned with the Federation's ideals, albeit from a different angle. Every time a decision troubled her, she imagined herself protecting the countless lives who benefited from the peace she helped preserve. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the missions changed. One day, it was extracting information from a Cardassian operative using methods that made Tanaka's stomach turn. Another, it was manipulating an election on a fledgling colony world to ensure a pro-Federation outcome. Then came the assignment to eliminate a Romulan senator under the guise of a shuttle accident. The tipping point wasn't a single act, but a slow, cumulative erosion of her ideals, one compromise at a time, until she barely recognized herself. What Tanaka didn't understand was that Section 31 never intended for her to survive in the long term. Section 31 operated under the philosophy that deniability wasn't just an asset, it was a necessity. A true Starfleet officer with a conscience and principles could be useful for a time, especially when optics demanded a cleaner public image. But eventually, even the most loyal officer became a liability. Sooner or later, they would start asking questions. Sooner or later, they would balk at an order that crossed some invisible line even their compromised soul couldn't ignore. And when that happened, Section 31 had a simple solution. Tanaka didn't see the signs, or didn't want to. She missed the way her missions became increasingly isolated, the way her handlers grew colder, the way even basic requests for support were delayed or ignored. She missed the coded language in her debriefings, the subtle marks of preparation for her disposal. She believed that she was still part of Starfleet. She believed that when her service ended, she would return to the shining halls of the Academy as an instructor or take a captaincy among the stars. Instead, she was being led step by careful step toward her own execution. The final mission came with a pat on the back and a falsely warm smile. She was to intercept a secret Tall Shire convoy carrying experimental cloaking technology. The briefing claimed that the operation was sanctioned by Starfleet intelligence, but the authorization codes she was given were just slightly off, the way a fake smile is just slightly too wide. Even when her shuttle's navigation mysteriously malfunctioned, steering her directly into a Romulan border patrol sensor range, she clung to the hope that it was a glitch, not betrayal. Even when her calls for backup were met with silence, she told herself the relay station must be damaged. Even as Romulan disruptors ripped through her engines, forcing her to eject and float helplessly in deep space, she still didn't fully realize. It wasn't until the Romulan ship beamed her aboard that the truth slammed home. There would be no rescue. There would be no Federation negotiations for her return. As far as Starfleet, and certainly Section 31, was concerned, Commander Elise Tanaka had simply gone missing in the line of duty. A tragedy to be mourned briefly and then forgotten. On the Romulan ship, as she sat in the cell, Tanaka replayed every moment, every